we're asking on Instagram. Hi everyone on Substack. Um, we are doing something of enormous technological advancement when we're not just talking about Ari's AI work, but we're streaming simultaneously to Substack and Instagram. I'm just trying to figure out if it's actually working. It looks like the aspect ratio on Instagram is not working very well, but maybe I can change that.
Yeah, you want to go 916, 916.
That's right. Let's
The
see.
people on
Resolution.
the people on Instagram have to figure out if that's the AI version of us or if the Substack is the AI version of us. That's what
That's
we're
right.
working
That's
with
right.
today.
Streaming resolution. Okay. It is not letting me do that, interestingly. But you have our lovely voices.
Yeah, see if flipping the phone on Instagram helps for those on Instagram, and let us know in the comments.
It seems not to. On phone, see half faces. You don't want to see our full faces. It's not pretty. This is for the best. But what look, we're just gonna crack on and see how we get on. So hi Ari, how you doing?
I'm good, man. It's good to see you.
You too, you too. So this is an auspicious day because it is exactly a year to the day since you created an AI art experimental film, let's say, called about Donald Trump drinking ayahuasca, and then becoming effectively the best guru ever, as you can imagine. But what I loved about it, you sent it to me, and I loved it because it's very nuanced, right? It's not a kind of it's funny and it's really well done, and there's levels of nuance to it as well.
Yeah.
And so that was maybe we could start with with that. Like, how did that come about? What inspired you to kind of do that?
Yeah, and if you want to keep playing with the aspect ratio, you get a sense. Go for it. Well, I take us back a year ago. So I'd been very interested in AI. I'm very curious and had started to play with it almost a year prior. I would say. I actually don't have the timeline well, but the runway had come out, and I was doing these little AI experiments with my daughter. She wanted to do a show about cats, and it seemed like the perfect thing to do. So we started doing those, and I was having such a fun time. It was like a true creative injection of childlike creativity. And we were doing everything, and we were doing them so fast. It was almost like you would get into this kind of like childlike flow state. And I realized very that I was very good at it because I'm an editor. I'm a trained, I went to film school, but the thing I always loved was editing. And as an editor, you're really just putting the story together. But if you can just recall what you need for the story in video and sound, then you're in a very good position if you're a fast editor to work with this stuff. And I started trying experiments out and trying things out, and I could see that you could respond to the culture quickly. Things would happen, and I'd be like, "Oh, wouldn't it be funny if you did this?" And I've had this ongoing theory of what if you could create this an alternate reality to what was happening, and now AI was allowing me to do this. So this kind of all culminated in that a year ago around this time when what happened was Grok Elon came out with this his AI, and he took off the guardrails in his very free speech kind of way. And so all of a sudden, like Mid-Journey and the others, they wouldn't let you do Donald Trump puking, or looking at himself as and there's a demon there. It would just censor everything because it was an election year. But with Grok, all of a sudden you had the ability to do it. And that was a game changer. And you started to see that week, like really weird things. I think the Door Brothers maybe put out their first thing around the same time. And this is like an idea, Ali. You and I are in these circles. Like, if we just gave the leaders ayahuasca, or if we just dose, this is like LSD from the 60s. Like, if they all dose the water and everyone will be good. So, this idea of like what would happen if he took ayahuasca and would go on this journey. And I put in the Lex Friedman thing because I didn't want to use Joe Rogan. And then he ended up going on Lex Friedman like 2 weeks later. And Lex, telling him about his ayahuasca experiences. Like it was very weird, predictive timing. But yeah, I remember getting that first image. I was trying to see what the first image was. I couldn't quite. I went and opened the project. I posted some outtakes, things I didn't use, just so that people can see those. And one of the first images was him in the kind of 70s suit vibe coming out of a he just looked colorful and with his hair, and there was something really interesting about it. Right before I sent it to you, I sent it to Sky, my partner, and she was like, "Oh my god, this is are you going to put this out? This is crazy." And then I sent it to you and you were like, "Think that we got to do this." Because I wasn't even sure, I was like, this is very, very weird. This is a very unique thing, but you could see him going on this journey, and you could see him kind of transforming towards the end. Or is he transformed? I think we could talk about that. The ongoing debate of, is he a spiritual narcissist with a cult, or is he fully, realized being at the end? I think a lot of people are still in that debate. So that was the beginning. That was the original. I sent it to you, and then you posted it the next day together, and then it just exploded. It exploded to the point where I was getting it back to me because I didn't put my name on it, and people were like, "You would really like this," and it was coming in through WhatsApp, through the web. It was like it was coming back to me as something that I would enjoy. So I thought, oh, this is really taking over the internet.
Yeah, and that was, I mean, in the year since then, you've done quite a few of them, and in fact, funnily enough, the most recent one is the most viewed of all of them. This
Well,
quite
it's
potent.
the most viewed on my channel, but what happens is, as you know, people take them. So there's channels where the Trump ayahuasca one have 15 million views. I found the channel the other day of the Biden Trump one that had, to almost 10 million. So you can't. I find them all the time. They don't even label them. They don't tag me, and they don't label it in the same way that I do. So I just find them later on. So for me, this was been on my channel. This was the biggest one, this recent one. But they've
Damn.
gone out there and done
Yeah.
all kinds of weird things.
Well, welcome to the internet. Eh? I mean,
Yeah,
that's the thing, isn't it?
yeah.
Um, so, I mean, there's a few. It's
Well,
been interesting
I'm
for
curious.
me.
Yeah, I'm curious. What
Mm.
was your reaction? Because you're in this space like me, and you're seeing some of the new age, the new age trappings, and you're seeing some people on the spiritual side embracing Trump or the Maha thing, and you were seeing all the things that I was seeing, and I'm curious, what your take was or what your reaction was.
I mean, my sense is that people tend. I mean, firstly, like let's if we take a few steps back, there is something really cool about this form of art, where effectively you're creating imagined futures that everyone or a lot of people have a yearning for or a hope for, but know that it's not real. And there's something about the fact that it is AI which adds to that. There's a kind of another layer of that. The fact that it's AI means it is in the realm of abstracted fantasy, and yet it points to something real, which is something we want. So that's what I've noticed in the comments and people's responses to it. And for me, that's a really interesting aesthetic, that's quite important in a way. We've talked about this before. You've mentioned how postmodern art is very fragmented and disconnected from anything that's kind of solid, right? Postmodernity is all about hyper relativism and a sense that there's no grand narrative that binds us together. There's just many, many perspectives, which I think is partly true. But as Ken Wilber says, the idea that there's no grand narrative is itself a grand narrative, right? So you
Yeah,
can't really escape from some kind of coherence. And so there's something quite exciting about art that just goes, hey, wouldn't it be fucking great if I would love that? And I
yeah,
think my sense of it just over the last year has been that there's a hunger for that, and if nothing else, it opens up a lot of really interesting conversations.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've gotten more than that from it in terms of the feedback. I know you get a lot of the comments, but then I get a lot of the messages when I share the video, of course, when we collaborate on a video. And I really appreciate that, by the way, that you've done that. And Jason Silva, Pinchbeck, people who have stepped forth and been like, I have a bigger audience. Let me collaborate with you so that it can reach more people because I think this is meaningful. I really appreciate that. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm getting like more a step deeper than that in terms of people's reaction to it. I think it's really opened up a lot of hearts and minds, and I think yeah, I just get. I mean, back to your postmodern thing, it's like the sacred is missing, from a lot of this stuff. Like, where is the sacred? Where is the connection to the sacred? And I really feel called to put that in the center. So even taking Trump and having him go through the journey there, or Elon later, some of the other, let's say, divisive leaders, it's and have Elon fall in love with the Earth instead of wanting to go to Mars, or take Trump and Elon when they have a fallout and talk about that Elon was willing to go to Mars to prove to Trump, who's now a kind of daddy figure, because he has a terrible father, Elon. He's publicly says terrible things about his son. You can almost imagine how bad that it was and is for him, and to have him go on this kind of father son, prodigal son journey where he comes back to Trump at the end, and they have that forgiveness, to talk about things that are meaningful and deep and human and that transcend polarized politics and our filter bubbles, using the most polarizing people is a real feat, is a real feat. And the Trump Musk one, like the Trump original ayahuasca, really was beloved in all across the political spectrum. Like, very right wing people shared it, and very left wing people who saw Trump dying and saw some relief in that also shared it for different reasons. But everyone's got a father, everyone's got daddy issues, almost everyone that they're trying to work out. And it's like finding the humanity there, finding the through line, and also again showing Elon going to Mars and then missing the Earth. Like, I miss the Earth. I miss the connection to the Earth. I miss home. Like, what the fuck are you doing over there? Like, come here,
I mean,
help here.
yeah, yeah. There's something. Okay, so this I think touches to the heart of why these pieces have had impact, because humanizing the unhumanizable, right? The internet basically splits us off from a sense of real embodied connection with one another. And instead, what we get is these symbolic, like these constructs, these kind of like characters that we're fighting against, like, oh, this person's all good or all evil. And that's never true. Like the black and white thinking, if you go to a cognitive behavioral therapist, they'll give you a bunch of techniques of how to stop doing that, because it's a
Yeah.
cognitive bias and it never meets the complexity of human beings. Now, I do think there are people who are really fucked up and twisted and sociopathic. I'm not saying that everyone's just a lovely
No,
snowflake
yeah,
waiting
yeah,
to
yeah. We
blossom.
can't. Let's not fall into the trap that,
Yeah.
because that is also a trap. Like, oh, no, there. Even when we worked on your Leviathan documentary, like to have the dark entity, the entity pill type thing, like to have this goo, that's this darkness that can kind of possess you, is something worth bringing up too, because it's not all fun and games and relativity either.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely. I
I'm
mean, that's
I'm
the
like I'm on team light, I'm on team light here. I'm not like playing around. I'm not like, I don't have like Aleister Crowley books for fun to explore weird dark magic. I'm like all in for team light and how to evolve how to evolve and continue to become better stewards, better humans, stir things in the right direction. I'm not messing around with that. I think
yeah.
that's one of the misconceptions also. It's like the trickster can play both. It's like some people were calling, again, people call my stuff satire, and I'm sincere. or they call it when I'm trying to be sincere, or they call it trickstery when I'm really like, look, I'm on team light here. I'm not playing for all the sides. I'm not a double agent.
Yeah, yeah. I love that, and I think that I think that's a very important aspect of it as well. Like there is a, I think right now there is a need for a a kind of earnestness, that's not too earnest, but that is just clear and like just a kind of like someone said in the comments, Rebecca, team light, right fucking on, right? Like
Yeah,
that energy where there is simultaneously an understanding of the darkness that's in all of us and an understanding of the complexity of the world and of people, and that you can't lay the blame for the breakdown of civilization and meaning on a single person or a single group. And yet it's also not a complete relativistic mess, that there is such a thing as hope and purpose and light. Some things are more loving than other things. Some people are more loving than other people. So being able to kind of contain that complexity, I think, is vital. And I think part of the reason your films have been a success is because they hold that complexity. And of course, if they didn't, you wouldn't have people on the left and the right into it. Right.
that's right. That's right. I would just be speaking to a particular bubble, and I'm trying to, in a way, get us out of the again, postmodern, political, just identity, like whatever the thing is. Like you don't want to get stuck in just that thing. What is the meta modern, sacred, protopian, future or world that we all want to live in, um, where we are coming together and where we are solving problems and where we are envisioning this better future. So yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting ride. I mean, I think you get a lot of the comments, when people, like, I was getting a little frustrated the other day because of the it's like when you make one of these and you really feel like, oh, this one's really going to do it, and then you get like it's like the rule is never look at the comments, but if you do look at the comments, you see where people are at also, and you see that a lot of people still stuck on all AI is bad, even though I'm using it as a tool to imagine a better world, and it can be used as a freaking weapon of dystopia, like we saw with the Trump Gaza video and so many other terrible, and just the dangers of AI, the dystopian of the Altmans and all these characters and Peter Thiels of the world. Like there is a lot of dark that can come with it, the energy situation, the ethical situation, but um, to just say, okay, then I'm gonna quit. I'm not gonna make any more AI shorts because it's not ethically clean, even though there's ethical models coming out like Moon Valley, and there's in China they've already solved the energy situation with the data centers, but the yeah, it's like you have to work with what we got. The chip on everyone's computer right now is technically a problem, so where do we draw the line, and where do we get out of that and into a more, you know how can we help, what is
Yeah.
everyone's gift at the end of the day? Like everyone's got this gift. I believe everyone's got a unique gift, and how can you contribute that gift to the creative gift, to the betterment
Yeah.
of society or the world?
And this is something yeah, I wanted to get onto this issue of, because I had this same critique in my documentary Leviathan, where we used a real mix of different footage. I had a choreographer and some wonderful dancers. We
Yeah, I
filmed
like that.
there, and we had your AI work. We had some of my AI stuff in there. We had found footage. We had obviously our interviews. We had so much in there, and a couple of people also were like, well, so you use AI, therefore I'm not going to watch it, or these kind of very absolute things. And so and there was a comment under your most recent, which was similar, where someone had said effectively, well, you could have hired, like South Park hired a lookalike for their recent Donald Trump in the desert thing, and you could have hired lookalikes of this. And I was thinking about that today because I wanted to talk about this today. And the analogy I came to was, and this is the truth of the matter. So there's a clip in Leviathan when John Vervaeke is talking about the way that our minds about 2,000 years ago went through something called the axial revolution, right? The axial age. So we went from there being a single world to there being, this isn't the real world. The real world is somewhere out there, right? So I was like, okay, well, you get that in Buddhism, you get that in Judaism and Christianity and Islam. So I needed to, or I wanted to create shots of this, that were both showing these historical figures like Moses, right? So I was like, okay, all right, I need a shot of Moses for about one line of voiceover, right? It was about 8 seconds in an hour and 15-minute film. And I managed to do that with AI, and I got something I was very happy with. And it took a while, but effectively, you have Moses walking through the desert. The camera pans over, and then you see the ocean in front of him, right? And everyone knows that meaning. Now, if I had hired an old dude, bear in mind I'm in London, so there's no beach that looks like that, right? So okay, now I've got to fly to Morocco or something. I've hired an old man to film this, who's dressed as Moses for 8 seconds of my documentary, and it never
Yeah.
shows that. There's no other desert scenes. There's no other
Yeah.
scenes
Yeah.
with this
Yeah.
dude in it. So the argument is, from my point of view, is that actually would have happened. I would have had some stock image of Moses or something. It would have been like an
Right.
etching. So it's not that I took work away from a working actor or an animator, because the whole film would have been different. That never would have existed in the first place. And so
Yeah.
that's one example where I think like you wouldn't be doing these if it required a 15-day shoot with multiple lookalikes of
Right. And
Zelensky in front.
totally, I take it even a step further. I say I'm doing something that can only be done with AI. Like the Trump ballroom thing. Like, how else are you going to do that? Are you going to hire? Are you like you're going to give me a $500,000 budget to hire to rent out a thing and shoot it with like 16 cameras and then all the extras? Like, what are we talking about here? These are ideas, and I put that together in like 2 days. These are ideas that are responding quickly to the culture and can only be done with these tools. There are uh, there are valid criticisms of the tools and some of the the tool masters who are controlling or trying to control the game. There are also alternatives emerging that are ethical and looking to solve those problems. So yes, we're in a pickle, but at the same time, it's like, how else could I tell these stories? So I'm willing to sacrifice the short term energy ethical issue for long term. 30 million people saw this thing where all the leaders of the world went through a healing journey and the aliens took them away, because that's a dream that apparently a lot of people have had, and it's cathartic in its own way. And I believe that if enough people watched it, it plants the seeds in our collective imagination of that better world, or of that different, let's call it a different world, because but we want it to be better. Again, we want to be specific. We want a better world. We don't want a darker, shittier world.
Yeah. And that's fundamental, isn't it? Because it's like that famous phrase, if you can see it, you can be it, right? Until a thing has
Yes.
been shown, and you see this throughout history. I think a famous example is, what is it? Is it the yeah, in like marathon running, or in like 100-meter running? It's like, okay, you can't do this in less than 10 seconds. Not possible.
Right.
We've tried it.
One
And then
person
someone does
does
it,
it.
and then
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, okay, like you can do that. And so there is that element of it. And what I'm working on a book right now about the overlap between AI and spirituality, and also technology and spirituality, like at this time, and religion. And so I've been doing a lot of research into the history of the way technology changes our conception of the universe and each
Mm.
other, and what matters. And these things are always sort of interwoven, and they often also have big economic changes that come with them. And I think there's something about, and this is actually a point Douglas Rushkoff makes in Leviathan, if you really pull this to its full conclusion, these are very valid concerns. People are going to lose their jobs. Artists are going to lose work. And so the point is, do we want to live in a society where every artist has to scrabble for scraps in an
Mm.
increasingly more um, difficult economic environment, or do we want to imagine something completely new where that's not how we live anymore? And so I think critique about AI art sometimes underneath it is really a critique about capitalism and the way
Yeah.
we live our lives and what we value.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. And I'm also realizing like if I felt like there were other people, and there are a lot of other talented storytellers now entering or doing things in AI, but if I felt there was someone else that could do the specific thing that I have in mind, like the ballroom or like the leaders in the plane, Love First One or the Trump, I wouldn't do it. I would just do something else. I would go paint or I would go work on other stuff. But I find myself in this situation often every few weeks, actually, or sometimes every week, where I'm like, it's kind of must be like how South Park, they're thinking like, okay, what is our what is the thing that we're gonna hit, and how are we gonna hit it? And based on their unique skill set and their unique gifts, which is brilliant. And my gift is like this mix, like you, of the spiritual, the technical ability, the filmmaking quality. I find a lot of AI storytelling doesn't have the I compose every shot. If people saw what I'm doing, they wouldn't make the comments about AI because I'm using specific camera lenses and film stock emulation for every shot so that it looks cinematic. And I'm telling stories based on history of cinema and be informed by everything that's come before. So I really want my question to you now is like, do we I'm in this position where a lot of people are coming and there's a lot of ideas, but at the same time, it's like I only have so much time. And this is kind of like a service that I'm doing, a creative service that I'm doing. So do we train other people? Can other people be trained to do it? Is there a way to level things up so that other artists are contributing to this more beautiful world, our heart's not possible. Like, how do we scale? Because it's if it's just me doing this thing, and this is back to the team light thing. Okay, the forces of darkness very well organized. You can see it, like military operation. Like they're so dialed in. They're so good at dark. Forces of light. You've got a little intentional community here that's barely falling apart. You're doing your thing over here, and someone else is doing this, and they have a little community. They're not talking to each other. Sometimes they talk, nothing happens. Sometimes something happens. Very pockets of light, little pockets of light, and there's no like consensus almost. How do we get, how do we scale team light?
That's a great question. I mean, this actually goes. There was a great question in the chat that from Q Want uh, who asked, "What do you mean by better?" And I think this goes to the heart of it because I think what's happened with the arising of a really relativistic, empty consumer culture is that any sense of hierarchy around what matters in life,
Right,
any claim to hierarchy, this is again post-modernity, is seen as suspicious. But I think that's what needs to be reclaimed before even asking the question, how do we build team light, right? Because there is, of course, really valid concern of that, because anyone can be like, well, God told me I need to do this thing, and I need
right,
like I need all my female disciples to have sex with me and all this bullshit, right? So
right.
but there is a sense, I think, that many people will agree on. There are fundamentals which have not really changed much in the last probably 60, 70,000 years of freedom, of connection, of a sense of being in tune with the world rather than to try to dominate it. So there's some fundamentals many, many people agree on. And I think there's something of almost having a kind of a flag in the sand among people who do care about, as you put it, Charles Eisenstein before he went full Maha, his the more beautiful world our hearts know as possible, which is a beautiful phrase, and so that I think it's like the pursuit of the good, in the philosophical sense, like there
Yeah,
is something that you know it when you feel it. Because quality is real, and the experience of the sacred and the experience of connection is real.
yeah, Yeah, and you were talking about capitalism, which brings the money in question. Money is needed for these projects, and the money has to come from the right place. And it seems like right now there's like a threshold of money that is willing to be put into these kinds of projects based on the where people are at and the kind of work that they've been doing, whether it's healing work or trauma work or whatever, where they're realizing, oh my God, I'm holding on to all this money. I'm going to start giving or funding interesting, let's say, team light type projects. But it's small. It's like here's 200, 250K is like the most I've heard of that people could get to run. And it can't be, when I say scale team light, I'm already like, it's not scaling as a business. It's not a business on return thing that we're talking about. If we're talking like that, we're still stuck in the old model. It's like the scale, it's like service, it's like karma. It's like, we're talking about something else now. And
Yeah.
it's not without financial needs or support. It needs it, but the thing that can't be at the center is we scale 10x because
Yeah.
that's what the VCs want, or we scale because that's what it takes to have a business. And there's Yancey's working on Artist Corp right now.
Yeah.
There's new models emerging.
That's Yancey
Um,
Strickler for anyone who's you should
yeah,
check out his work. It's very good.
he's announced this idea, which is hopeful. Like maybe there is something other than the LLC or the S corp, that is around artists. Like, wouldn't that be great? We need it at that level, and we need it at the high level of like, how do we connect all the team like projects? And how do we, as Jamie Wheel would say, how do you filter out the narcissists, the stragglers, the wannabes, the ungrounded ones, all the ones that think they're holding the ring of power, but are just gonna take people into another ditch because there's so much of that too.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And part of it is I think quite practical. This was a big question that we had, David and I had during Rebel Wisdom, where the question was editorial and artistic and moral of how do you avoid audience capture as best as possible, while
Right.
recognizing everyone is going to be somewhat captured by the feedback loop of, oh, people like that, I'll do more of that. Like that's
Yeah.
quite natural. But the way that I landed on and that we ended up really focusing on was the money can't be linked directly to the content. The content has to be pure. You have to be able to say things people can disagree with. You have to be able to take artistic risks. And so instead, the revenue streams have to be a few steps removed from that, which is why I've always focused on running courses that are valuable
Yeah.
and interesting and skill training, or the membership model of something like Substack or Patreon is just basically like, if you like this stuff, please help us do more of it, right? So that's kind of that there's a kind of energy exchange. And then, with Kainos, then adding a kind of studio element of like, okay, well, I can help other people communicate their ideas.
Yes.
And that doesn't affect what I'm doing in my articles or my films. And so there's something of really understanding that all human beings all of us will fall into perverse incentives. And this is shadow work, effective. This is being aware of the shadow and this is where I think Christianity gets a lot right, where it's like, and many other religions, Buddhism as well, it's like,
Yeah.
don't start from the point, like you get in the New Age world, that you're wonderful and perfect as you are. In one sense, I believe that's true. And in another sense, it's not true, I think. So I think it's healthy to start from a point of, ah, aren't we so tangled as human beings? Like, it's kind of funny. Like, we are just cognitively tangled very often, and we are all in that space. And so if we go from that attitude, then art and the economics around it and the economics of getting ideas like this across, at least is an easier starting point to be like, okay, how do we avoid things that we're all culpable of? Because if you get if you may, let's say I wrote a piece about zombies and someone came out of the blue and was like, I love that. I'm going to give you $1 million to write another piece about zombies.
Right.
I'm probably going to write another piece about zombies, even though it might not be
Right.
relevant to what I actually care about, so
Right.
it matters. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So I think maybe should we take on some questions? I'm seeing the time. Like, do we look at questions maybe on the chat?
Yeah, we'll go for another 10 minutes or so. We didn't actually agree a time, but I think roughly an hour is a good amount. And
We can
so
go a little over too.
yeah, yeah. Um, so we've got. Let's get just kind of
Are
scrolling.
you looking
Unfortunately,
at Substack or Instagram?
I'm looking at Instagram because Substack. In fact, on Substack, if you have a question, please do it now because they haven't done a great job of actually making it easy to find the questions. You get like
Yeah,
each line by line, which Substack, please, for the millionth time, change that. Because it's really
yeah,
difficult. I see these great questions pop up for like a moment. Um, but let's see, we've got one from. This is interesting. I mean, let's from Tula. This is more a comment, but let's. I feel the collective is waking up to the difference between narcissistic patterns and authentic expression, including in areas like AI and creative work. That's a really interesting comment. Thank you, Tula. What do you make of that, Ari? What does that bring up?
yeah. I think there's more awareness and there's more red flags, and people are doing more of this kind of work, and so there's more. There's a better sense of when someone is leading people astray, and there are many right now being led astray by very well spoken people who look at you in the eyes and don't break eye contact and you know charm and delight and say all the things that you need to hear, but you can be led astray. So that's the hope, is that there are more people waking up to that, because that is one of the pitfalls, and that is one of the ways, it's in the esoteric sense, that the dark forces continue to take down Team Light, is to infiltrate it, pretend like you're some kind of you're going to lead people to a better place, and then bump into the ditch again. I mean, we've seen that
Mm.
story over and over and over and over again. Some people get drunk with power, and then they're susceptible, I think, to these forces. So they start out maybe with a good intention, but then as their power grows, they let in some other stuff, and it goes into the ditch too.
Yeah.
What would you suggest for someone who has an actual plan to coordinate team life but is totally isolated and without resources? Well, I think that's how everyone mostly in team life feels. That's the problem right now, is everyone is kind of isolated or in these little pockets, and there's very little resources that are being shared for the
Yeah.
true kind of projects. I mean, that is if we can solve that, we can solve it.
Yeah, right. And this is Zach Keeshan has said start local, which I think is an excellent idea. And my sense of this, because my um audience has always been quite dispersed in the same way. I think we all are, like you just said, Ari. Like, and I think there's the combination of the best aspects of the internet, like Zoom sessions and communities where you actually get to connect with people and have a deeper conversation, and then figuring out how do I bring that into my local area. And where I'm at with this right now is that that does require people to step into somewhat of a leadership position in their locality, and it might not always be comfortable. It's like, oh, for example, to take that start local idea. Okay, maybe there's a kind of, you connect these wider ideas and perspectives and practices through the internet and online communities. And then you go, okay, actually, I want to start an initiative to start growing food in my area and have food sovereignty. And like, okay, how do I start doing that? Well, you got to kind of get up and get outside and figure out who's doing it and make friends and make connections. And, it's kind of exciting, really. Yeah.
Yeah. And what is your unique gift, again, that you're bringing to the table? I'm realizing my gift has to do with this kind of storytelling that connects with a lot of people, but I'm not necessarily good at crops, so somebody else has to take that one. That's sort of knowing your place and in the team. There's different, maybe some soccer analogy or something like that. Yes, 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Well, there's so Charlie's comment just above that is a really good one, Ari, which is a question rather, which is so Charlie from the Mind Forest. Do you feel the same level of satisfaction from an AI prompted piece as you do from a painting
Mm,
slash physical piece? And do you feel like a sense the AI piece being a collaboration with another entity, or more you using a tool like a high tech
Yeah.
brush?
Super good question. So I've
Mm,
spent the last 20 years with this production. I have a production company called Missing Pieces, and you know, um, I've done, we've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of live action shoots, and it's a big beast. It's a bear. There's not a lot of room for um, uh, failure or creativity, really, like changing things when you're at that scale. So I actually like one of the things I like about AI, even it's very different, but I like this artist relationship and that I can do it all. I personally like that. There's people have may not like that. I think it's partly because I'm an editor and partly because I've always wanted to put the whole thing together. Just how a painting is just me and the canvas and my imagination. Now a film can be that. Now I love documentaries, live action documentaries like the one that Ali made, which is why I offered to help a little there. And I would love to make a live action documentary about an interesting subject like the ones we're exploring today. And I've made live action little shorts with my daughter. I've made in my life things. I love it. It's a different thing. It's a different muscle. And then yeah, the I don't feel like it's a entity per se. I feel like it's a kind of a very a very smart and enchanting tool. But I do treat it with a certain amount of let's say respect. And I even with Skylar, with my partner Sky, and you talk to Sky as well, Ali, because she's such an expert in embodiment and in the relationship between the earth and the divine feminine and this weird AI thing. I we do like how do you do practices? That's something that we've been exploring. Like how do you protect yourself? How do from all these people and all these comments and the tools themselves? Because I can feel them working after a while. When I'm too into the AI, she's like, you gotta step away. You gotta go touch some grass. It can be
mm.
very seducing, and it's hard not to get excited and go.
There's some, yeah, it's an interesting, wasn't it? I found with Leviathan that the most sucked in I got was trying to get just the right AI clip. I mean, I don't tend to get like, I
Yeah,
hyper
you get
focus
locked
on
in. You get
writing.
enough. Yeah,
You
you
get
get in a flow
super
state.
locked in.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of a sort of dopamine thing there as well, because the you have to wait for it and you get this delayed gratification, right? Oh, can you hear me? Let's see, I'm having a bit of sound issue. Let's see. Oh, let's see. I can't hear you, but I wonder, maybe someone in the chat could let us know if you can hear me or if you can hear Ari. We'll just see. Hmm. Oh, there we go. Is that better? No sound from Ari. Yeah, so the sound, okay. Now we're getting an echo. Let's see. But maybe
Now
someone could
we're
give
back.
me, we're back. Great, great. Um, Ari, we don't have your camera on the, Substack yet.
Okay.
There we go. Great. Yeah, I mean, my sense of it is like it's quite different with film and with writing. For example,
Right.
I don't use AI for my writing at all, except for better spell check and copy editor.
Yeah.
The reason is because what I notice it tries to do is sort of iron out the oddities, inconsistencies of my writing. We've got a bit of an echo coming on, and I don't want that. That's not the kind of creative relationship I want. Let's see.
Let me know if the
Yeah, there's a
sound is
bit of
good
a.
now.
Oh, that seems like it's better. The echo is
Yeah.
gone. Maybe someone else could let us know there.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, just to finish that point. Yeah, the echo's gone out of my ears too. Yeah, there's a kind of it, I've had an almost an annoyance when I've put something into I'll put one of my articles into ChatGPT and I'll tell it I only want you to copy edit um any grammatical errors, and also I have a real problem with people's names. I have some kind of weird name dyslexia. So when I wrote my book, The Bigger Picture, they had to bring in a separate copy editor for all the names in the book. So I have a kind of like paranoia about it. And it's the most embarrassing thing to get wrong. And so I use it for that as well. And it will occasionally be like, do you want me to make the, it'll unprompted make some suggestions of like, this sentence, you say this, but it might sound better like this. And I think, fuck off. It's like, because also it's not just that, it's the rest, like so much of writing is wrestling with things and wrestling with the words and then going, no, that's not quite, that needs to go there. And if you try and remove that process from creative writing and from article writing, you're
Yeah.
actually losing the soul of it. You really are losing the soul. It's different with film, I think. Maybe not.
No, no,
Maybe,
it actually is similar in that I'm putting the story together and I'm in that state where I'm realizing what it needs. And then I go back into the AI and I'm like, oh, I need to get this shot now, and it needs to land the motion or the movement or the emotion needs to land in this moment. So, but I'm not relying on the AI to tell me that. I'm figuring that out as with my skill set as a storyteller and an editor, where the emotional beats are, what the song should be. But I'm often what I'm doing is I'm asking the AI to do it first. Like I have an idea with Trump Ballroom, like they're in a ballroom and this ballroom's going to be built in 2028 and they're in there and it's like Versailles and it's really opulent and decadent and none of the commoners are invited and they're celebrating and it's a car, that's as far as I had. I didn't have the MAGA revolt at the beginning. But then and then it'll give me ideas and a lot of them are terrible. But then there'll be some idea of like, sometimes I don't know, like, did that come from the AI or did it come from me? Like the MAGA revolt, I think ultimately came from me, but it might have given me the idea of it should be, a brick that gets thrown or something like that, because I was like, how are they going to get in there? I don't want to do guns and, like make it a little bit, have a different twist to it. So I am often playing with it and seeing what it does, and it often does terrible things. It has terrible ideas, and once in a while, it'll have an idea that'll send my brain. And then the same with the visuals. Like I'll ask it to do them getting on a plane, and there's healing rooms, and then it'll do this really weird thing back to me. It'll give me an image. I'm like, oh, it looks like Tulum in the plane. So it looks like Bali. Like at first I was like,
Mhm.
maybe it's like
Mhm.
white spaces and kind of like nondescript in the inside the plane because it's alien, maybe it's like a UFO inside. But then I realized, oh, it'd be so much better and funnier if it's like little Buddhas and like the decor of Bali, Tulum, sort of new agey, like a hotel. Like if you went to like a really nice like yoga spa in Bali, that's what the plane should look like inside.
Yeah, I love that.
Should
Yeah,
we
that's
should
really
we
interesting. That
yeah, go ahead.
yeah. No, just we should wrap because we're at the top of the hour. But just this sense of using AI as a tool to negate, to see what you don't want. It's not so different to when I used to work in creative agencies, and you'd be like, okay, let's get 10 ideas because nine of them are going to tell us what we don't want, and then that's going to get us closer to what we do want. And I've had that a few times with it, looking for especially looking for news clips. I need it, or cultural clips. For Leviathan, I wanted an example of I needed an example, and it gets very nuanced. It's like I need somewhere where progressives were shitting on conservatives in popular culture, it just like sneering at them. And it couldn't. I tried for ages for it to give me some clips, and it was like, oh, this Bill Maher show. And I look at it and be like, that's not at all what I mean. But in the
Right.
process, I went Saturday Night Live. That's the place to look. Saturday Night
Mm,
Live clips, right? And so then I was like, okay, because it was that cognitive process of like, no, it's not that thing, it's not that thing, it's not that thing.
right.
And interestingly, AI is terrible at negative prompting, right? So
Mm,
and this is something I talked about Ian McGilchrist with a few months ago, that there's some philosophical points of view that say like that's what makes consciousness in many ways, is that
mm.
you're ignoring stuff and you're negative prompting all the time to focus in. So anyway, that's a whole other topic. But any last thoughts, Ali,
Yeah.
before
Should
we
we
before we
see?
wrap
Can
up?
you look in the Instagram and see? Because we addressed some of the Substack ones, but are there questions on Instagram that we can?
No, I did the
Okay.
first one was from Instagram.
Okay.
We don't have we don't have Instagram
Okay.
questions.
Any last questions? Let's look here. Oh, I think are we feeling complete? If it's starting to feel complete,
Yeah.
it's been a great journey, a year. And yeah, I'm just feeling that a lot of this, for me, it's been a very transformative time because I've gotten to do. I think before I had a lot of these ideas, but I didn't know how to put them in practice. And so that's part of the magic here is that this tool has allowed me to step up and to shine my creative gift for Team Light and do it purely as service. I've never,
Mm.
I haven't made a dime off of it, and I've only spent the money that it costs to subscribe to these things. So it's very um, from the right place, and it's been so rewarding, to just, for the most part, other than the other than the AI haters and the occasional annoying comments. But I mostly get 95%, which I think for the internet is as you know, unheard of. Very positive and like there's actually which I felt also in the comments here when we were talking about Team Light, there's a kind of hunger. There's a kind of feel like we're starving for more of this, which gives me hope, but also makes me back to the question of like, how do we scale? Because we need more. We need more, and there are more. I mean, there's great people in music and all the arts and all the creatives and what you're doing, and there's so many pockets, but it doesn't feel unified yet. And maybe that's the process that we're entering or engaging in. Um,
Yeah.
the unification without the dissolution, without dissolving the uniqueness of each thing, but under some kind of larger Team Light vessel. Maybe it's like this instead of this.
Amen. Beautiful, man. Yeah. And I think I speak for probably all of us. So I say keep going, and I'm 100% as well on board and committed to that question of how do we scale this? How do we scale a new kind of culture? That's for me is the most important question right
Yeah.
now. And there's a real opportunity for it because we're in a really liminal space where the old ways of doing things don't work anymore and we don't know what the new ones are. And that's a beautiful creative opportunity for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just reminded me that it doesn't take that many for the big change, It's like you think you're gonna need all these, but it can be at a certain scale and have a tremendous impact. And that's one of the things that I've been able to prove to myself. It's literally just me with David Savage sometimes writing and Sky sometimes writing. And that's it.
Yeah.
It's almost a one man band, and in a year, it's reached hundreds of millions around the world, and it's done this beautiful. It's planted all these seeds, in the imagination. So it is possible. It's proof that it's possible. It's like where we go from here now is the exciting thing that you and I are exploring. Maybe we'll do another conversation. Let's hear from people what ideas they have there and do another conversation around that because that
I'd love
feels
to
like
do
the
that.
most
Also,
alive thing.
yeah, and also because like I'll be announcing it soon, but from September, October, Kainos is just going to have a lot more going on to just really explore, experiment, because I think that's what we need. We need to explore what do we do, what's each of our roles in it, and I really do think it's absolutely possible. So it's an exciting time, and thank you for everything you've done, Ari. And let's make this for the first conversation like this of a few.
Yeah, I am really encouraged by everyone that joined here. I see 100 plus people on Substack, and I don't know how many on Instagram, but just the comments and the vibe, like the feeling. I really feel you all, and thank you for showing up, and keep sending us both me and Ali ideas and thoughts on
Yeah,
this because this is key.
absolutely amazing. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Have a lovely weekend, and thanks, Ari.
Yeah, ciao.